and WNST.net. Lots of stories in the big city, and of course the NBA Finals going on. We'll be going to Cleveland as well as out to the Bay Area to preview all of that as we get into the weekend. And the Orioles taking on the Red Sox and the Ravens in shutdown mode. So I've been going out talking to the other 31 cities in the NFL since the draft to talk all things NFL. This guy does as good a job as anyone covering the National Football League for the New York Post. He is a self-proclaimed sarcastic Texan living in New York. I don't know how that goes for Bart Hubbuch, but it's great having you back on. I think last time I saw you, the Rangers and the Caps were duking it out. Both cities now sitting around watching Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup Finals. Right, Bart?
Yeah, San Jose, too. That great traditional NHL powerhouse, right?
Well, I mean, I thought about this 2 weeks ago. I thought, what if the NBA really winds up with Toronto, Oklahoma City, and the NHL really winds up with, like, San Jose, Tampa Bay? You get the best games of the year this time of year, yet who wants to sit and watch it? But I don't think we're going to have a problem with, as much as you're a football writer, you've been tweeting as much about the NBA as anybody. The NBA has been incredibly compelling, and this is the time where the NBA really gets after the NHL and shows how much bigger it is, right?
Yeah, I think if it had been Oklahoma City, Toronto, it wouldn't have been, I think people would have had a problem with, Toronto, just because there's not the, even just kind of casual NBA fans just aren't really familiar with, with the players on that team. But I think if it had been, with Oklahoma City, wouldn't have been that much a problem. A small market, you got Westbrook and Durant, and those are big names, and so I think there would have been some interest there. But it's just these leagues. That's what's going to happen when you might eventually pay the price for expanding to these small markets.
Well, I mean, that's what they wanted, though, right?
The danger of that,
Yeah, when the NHL and the NBA went into these markets, the idea was to not have the Celtics and the Lakers every year, right? Or have the the Red Wings and the Rangers every year. But then they get in, and you're like, oh, San Jose. Well, I guess they're excited there. Hey, the whole Bay Area's got to be excited, right? In the next couple of weeks, they're going to be pretty active around there if you're really a Bay Area sports fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a knocking the Sharks for being a small market is a misnomer, because they are the Bay Area's hockey team. So, yeah, it's just not a team you're used to seeing this far in the playoffs very often. Though.
Well, we would say perennial choke, but hey, I'm a Caps fan. What can I say, Bart? Right? Hey, so for the NFL, we've had a strange situation here this week where everybody else is OTAing and the Ravens aren't. And to get some outside perspective, and I know the NFL's your prime beat and what you do, the draconian nature of what's coming on from your town in Goodell when people knowingly, willfully, and sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, bend the rules, break the rules. And I think at the heart of this Patriot thing, some say it's an equipment violation. Some say it's just flat out, cheating. And where that line gets crossed and where Goodell hands down these incredible fines to John Harbaugh and saying, dude, you should have known better. It's right there in the rules. The Ravens are paying the price. And it feels like every time someone's breaking the rules, whether it's pumping in too much sound, whatever it happens to be, when it gets to Park Avenue, there's going to be hell to pay for these franchises.
Well, I think they're trying to, I think, you can agree or disagree on the severity of these punishments, but I think the Goodell and the league office, they're just trying to, I think in a lot of cases they just had enough is enough, and they're trying to do these, I think, extreme punishments to send a message. You could definitely argue the penalties against the Chiefs, for the tampering were pretty, severe and might have been over the top. Anybody make that kind of contact with the player next year, So
that's been going on forever, cases, right?
I think some of these, yeah, and I think the NFL kind of looks a little bit hypocritical just because now they've legalized the tampering period. It's almost like where do you draw the line, or where is the line in that kind of situation? But I think this is just a situation where the NFL feels like it's a problem and they need to deal with it, and that at least in their opinion, the best way to deal with it is to really come down hard on and make an example out of people, in these different situations, and they're thinking that the rest of the league will, pay attention and then won't do it, and as far as Deflategate and the Patriots, yeah, I just don't think. I think too many people are willing to look at that situation in a vacuum, and it's just not. I mean, if whether or not you think that Brady, was involved, I think it's clear to anybody outside of New England that there was something shady going on there, and that and that's not the first time, obviously, that the Patriots have been dinged for evading the rules or breaking the rules, and so I think that was just kind of I think that came down so hard on Brady and on the Patriots just because it's almost like a makeup call. Maybe I think a lot of owners felt like Goodell had gone a little too easy on the Patriots for as bad a cheating as Spygate was.
Well, and the Spygate thing was tampering with evidence and, getting rid of evidence. I mean, all of those kinds of things that went on the first time that really, there was no draconian rule on that. It was more finger wagging and hand wringing and the media calling for heads and all of that. But in the end, it was felt that Kraft got some sort of preferential treatment, and those days are long gone, right?
Right. I mean, I think, and I think that that's directly attributable to, a bunch of other owners thinking that, Goodell had gotten too close to Kraft, and that Kraft was kind of working the refs and had worked the refs to the point that it was just overwhelmingly in the Patriots' favor, and that the league was willing to almost look the other way anytime the Patriots were up to their, usual shenanigans. And so, I think that Goodell maybe read the tea leaves right and was like, my job security could be in jeopardy if these other owners think that I'm too close with one owner. And so I think that's why you've seen the split come between the NFL and the Patriots. And I think that's why you saw the punishment be so extreme.
Happy to be joined by Bart Hubbuch. He is the NFL writer and columnist for the New York Post. You can follow him at nypost.com as well as out on Twitter, where he has a lovely picture of Manhattan, as well as a very similar picture that I took out at the Super Bowl this year from Super Bowl 50 on the field. It's at Bart Hubbuch. That's Hubbuch out at the New York Post. All right, so from the coach's perspective on this Harbaugh situation, and you cover the league as closely as anybody, the coaches were really sold down the river, right, by the Players Association and the owners when they got together the last CBA. It feels like the coaches were never brought into this, and the whole issue of CTE and padded practices and injuring players and overzealous coaches and coaches 30 years ago, denying guys water on 100-degree days, out on two-a-day practice fields and all that rough and tumble that NFL films captured then, to where we are now, where coaches can't even send a text to their players until, the leaves come on the trees. It's a different world, especially for coaches that have been around this a long time, and where the gray area is, much like you said, legal tampering in that case, but where you're coaching and where you're just checking in on your players, and then where you're trying to make your football team better. I mean, these coaches, they live, eat, breathe, sleep, trying to win. It's all they do to keep their jobs, and they can't call their players for 3 months, and they never checked off on that as a coach. Maybe the coaches need a union, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people said that. Look at the whole Bountygate thing. The players ended up getting off because it turned out to be bogus. But Sean Payton didn't have a union, and so he had to sit out an entire year. So I think there is something to be said for that. But I don't know whether you could blame or be surprised by the NFLPA turning on that, because the extent of padded practices and contact and in the off season and all that stuff that the players had gotten out of hand before the last CBA, that constituted one of their only victories, I think, in the CBA negotiations. Otherwise, they really took it on the chin. They kind of gave away the store when it came to the last CBA talks. And so, this was one of the things that they won on. So I don't know how you could be surprised by the NFLPA, being sticklers about this, because this is one of their things one of their victories that they can point to, and so they're going to be all over that.
Who's the victor of the offseason thus far in your mind? Now, you're up there in New York where the Jets are trying to figure out their quarterback. The Giants are trying to figure out a new coach. Lots of change going on around the league. We're here in Baltimore, coming off an awful year and drafting high for the first time. The Ravens have had a pretty nice offseason. I mean, as a fan, as a guy who covers the team, I feel optimistic they could win 10, 11, 12 games this year. There are a lot of places in the league, including Jacksonville, Oakland, some places where they haven't won 10 or 11 games where they feel like maybe they can.
Yeah, I think you got to look at a team like the Raiders as having a lot to feel good about. I just don't know that, after covering the league for so long, and seeing, how many teams seem to do well in free agency, and then it doesn't really make a difference when the season starts. That's why I've gotten so reluctant to declare somebody, having done a lot in free agency as having had a good off season. It's just so much is on paper that doesn't translate. It seems like in recent years. I just I think the poster child for that is the 2011 Eagles. Everybody thought that what Vince Young called them the dream team, and and at least they ended up going 8-8, and so so I don't really like to look at teams at how they did in free agency and say this is a team to look at. Just because, like I said, it's just gotten to be proven so wrong in the past years.
Bart, you said the magic word in Eagles, right? I mean, what a weird offseason they've had, right? I mean, probably the strangest for the second year. I mean, it was weird last year when Chip's trading everybody away. Now Chip's not there, and they're giving quarterbacks money and giving away drafts to get quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's a little strange. I mean, I think that I think you're seeing that the new GM or new and formerly old GM, Howie Roseman, got power back after a year. I think you're seeing that how little confidence he had in the Bradford move, and so I think he wanted to address that right off the bat, and I think he went into it thinking that the Eagles had a pretty good roster aside from their quarterback, and that they could win now. And so I think he was just throwing, all the resources at the quarterback position just to see if they can bring in three of them and come away with one. So I think that was the thinking there, and it was just kind of a reaction to the him not really signing off on the Bradford trade, and that being all Chip Kelly. So we'll see. I'm not sold on Carson Wentz. I'm just very skeptical. He might have all the physical tools, but you're talking about a guy who was playing Division I AA and needed 3 years to win the starting job at North Dakota State. I mean, and didn't even throw for 700 yards. Didn't even throw 700 passes in his college career. So
yeah, I'm from Missouri when it comes.
A lot of skepticism.
Yeah, I'm a Missouri guy when it comes to a North Dakota State quarterback, right? I mean, especially giving away 2 drafts to go get him. Bart Hubbuch joining us here, NFL writer and columnist for the New York Post. You can follow him out on Twitter as well. Last thing for you, I mean, you mentioned Raiders. Super Bowls to Atlanta and to LA and back to Miami again, which I think we're all appreciative of, who cover all these Super Bowls, that we don't have to go to Minneapolis every year or Jacksonville. But in the case of the Raiders and Las Vegas, and a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, and a Super Stadium in Las Vegas, it would be very Raider-like, and I think Al Davis, of course, long gone, but would appreciate the fact if the Las Vegas becomes the home of the Raiders over the next century, right?
Yeah, I have my doubts, but it does seem like the league is more receptive to Vegas than they've ever been. And to people I talked to in this, said in the story, it was like forever that's been a slammed door, but now it looks like the door is ajar slightly. But I just have too many, just to throw out the whole gambling and casino thing, because to me that's not really an issue anymore, because there's so many casinos around the country that. I mean, there's a casino when you walk outside the door at Green Bay's airport. So I don't know that the casino thing is a big deal, but is not a big deal to me. But Vegas is a very small market. I don't think people realize how small it is. It would be the 4th smallest market in the league, and and you would be going from the Bay Area TV market, which is 6th, I believe, in the country, and you'd be going all the way down to the 42nd largest TV market. So, it'd be a big step down in a lot of key metrics for the league. And the population there is very transient. I saw a story where the study that only like 24% of Las Vegas residents were born there or are natives, and and there's not really high median income there. So you'd have to wonder about if a team like that in a market like that could support, even though it's only 10 times a year, but could support a 60,000 seat stadium, could sell it out. And so I have my doubts, and I think the NFL will have its doubts too once they study the market further.
Well, I know all of us who have come to know and like Sam Farmer are really happy he's off of that beat in L.A., right?
Right.
I mean, it took 2 decades to have the baby, but the Rams got in there. And I've been out to L.A. This spring. I went out there for a couple of days to see Springsteen. I think there's more activity involved in L.A. for it, and I think they're going to sell some tickets. I think they're going to stink, and I think, much like, what they did in the draft to go get a quarterback who may or may not be, I think they've really done some things to set the franchise back as far as forward with the stadium out there. I'm wondering whether people are going to support a 4-12 team out in L.A.
I think that they will eventually, and I think they will at first, just because there's so much pent-up demand, and you're talking 20-something million people just within 2 hours of driving distance, and I think it would have been a lot more difficult for a team that maybe didn't have any kind of history there. But you're talking about the Rams going back to Los Angeles, and if you're an old school NFL guy like me, I love that. I mean, I think the Rams belong in Los Angeles, and I think a lot of people, just from an NFL, from a sense of tradition and history, the Rams to me that's the Los Angeles team, and I think a lot of people out there feel that way, and so I think you're going to see. They sold out their the ticket waiting list or whatever, filled up immediately, and so I think it's going to be a solid market for the NFL, and especially when that new stadium gets built, because that's just, the plans I've seen for it is just going to be the Taj Mahal of NFL stadiums,
Yeah, I've talked to people out in L.A. about the Olympics and stuff, and they're trying to put an Olympic bid together. That stadium would be the biggest part of their Olympic bid. So from a civic standpoint, and I know you've spent time out there at in Inglewood and going to the Forum, and it's 5 minutes from the airport. All of that's lovely, but they still have to win some football games out there, and we'll figure out whether they can do that. How are your New York teams doing? Jets ever going to figure this quarterback thing out? I ran into Fitzpatrick at the Ed Block Awards here about 8 weeks ago, and wanted nothing to do with the contract or the talk around the contract. It feels to me like this is one hell of a cat and mouse game going on, right?
Yeah, it's a stalemate, and it hasn't gotten bitter yet, at least not publicly, but it's definitely a stalemate. And a lot of ways, it's one of the more bizarre contract stalemates you're ever going to see. Because it is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he doesn't have any other any other options really. Seems like at this point, all the teams that need a quarterback have passed on him, but he fits the Jets situation. His teammates love him. He threw 31 TD passes last year, which is an all-time Jets record. Not even Joe Namath threw 31 TD passes in the season. And he's a natural. He's a perfect fit for Chan Gailey's offense, and the options aside from him are not attractive at all. Geno Smith and Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg. That's just not going to do it. You're just not going to win with any of those three. And so, it kind of seems like the Jets, even though they're lowballing Fitzpatrick, and to me it's kind of foolish to do that because, what kind of message are you sending to your fans? By lowballing this guy, and if he ends up signing elsewhere or retiring, you just kind of you probably cost yourself this season. And so, if I was a Jets season ticket, I'd be furious.
Well, I'll get to MetLife Stadium long before the Jets get there because Springsteen's playing in August, so that always welcomes me. Bart, great having you on, man. Always appreciate your time. Keep up the good work up there. We'll be following you out on Twitter as well as at the New York Post, man.
All right, great.
Appreciate you. Bart Hubbuch joining us here, longtime NFL writer and columnist and sarcastic Texan. You can follow him at mypost.com as well as at Bart Hubbuch. That's Hubbuch. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn radio app. We come in crystal clear. We've also been streaming crystal clear in HD in real time on our YouTube WNSTV channel. Appreciate all the great feedback on that. Trying to figure out the Facebook Live situation to get some sound to there too. We'll hopefully do that by the end of the week. So we got a lot of things going on around here. You can always throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever you are, we are. WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.